Well, here we are, folks, on the eve of probably the most historic U.S. presidential election ever. And I'd like to offer some thought, opinions, and hopefully an optimistic outlook from a Canadian perspective. Our friends, our sisters and brothers, yes, those crazy Americans indeed have a difficult choice to make tomorrow. Do they accept the inevitable? You know what that is. Nothing ever really changes. And settle into another Clinton era of politics? Not that former President Clinton was all that bad. Sure, he led the U.S. down the path that inevitably caused the housing collapse. If my memory serves me correctly, he was the deregulator in the residential mortgage industry where you actually didn't have to have a down payment or even qualify for a mortgage to get a home. But he actually had massive surpluses in his budget. Whether the economy was just right to govern at the time or not, well, I don't know, but he seemed to understand the financial workings rather well. Or do they head down the path of the unknown, a crass New York billionaire who uses every provision in the tax code he can not to pay taxes, which isn't wrong, it's legal, I guess, but he intends to plug those loopholes. He also says he's going to reduce taxes, he's going to cancel trade agreements, he's going to bring back jobs, he's going to build a wall, he's going to tighten border controls and significantly reduce immigration, and most of all, he's going to eradicate the world of ISIS. Well, if that isn't speaking to the electorate, I don't know what is. But one big advantage he has is people are fed up with the status quo, or now better described as the establishment. Trump's real appeal, he's not the establishment. But people aren't fed up as much about what government has or hasn't done. They're fed up with, they keep telling us that they are making our lives better, and all we see is our money not going as far as it once did, our young people not being able to realize the dream of home ownership, and our community and country seemingly deteriorating. The establishment never admits their errors or their problems. They never once apologize for making a mistake. If the Affordable Health Care Act in the United States didn't work the way it was supposed to, well, you tried. Admit it, it didn't work, and keep trying to get it right. If in Ontario the move to build all of our windmills and solar farms really didn't work because all it did was drive electricity costs through the roof, well, you tried. Admit it. It didn't work. Let's keep trying to get it right. We all tell our kids to be honest. It's better to fess up right away. The punishment is less severe. And that shows you're responsible and sincere. Own up to it right away and we'll work together to make it right. For some reason, we continually get the government we don't want, yet they continue to tell us we got the government we asked for. Well, it looks like 43% of Americans think the Donald is the answer to their prayers, and 46% think he's too risky. But Hillary might be different. Appears to me that regardless of the outcome, well, the next 4 or 8 years might be the biggest challenge ahead for our close friends south of the border. You see, both Hillary and Donald are looking inward to solve their problems or perceived problems. Hillary, prompted by her commitment to Bernie Sanders, agrees that the North American Free Trade Agreement her husband signed into law is fraught with problems and the cause of the exportation of jobs to Mexico, India, and China. They both agree that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, is the worst deal they've ever seen and vow to stomp all over it. Yes, all of America is looking inward. There's a bit of a problem with that outlook, you see, from my perspective anyway. America currently makes, produces, manufactures, or whatever you want to call it, much more than they as a nation can consume. They make more cars than they buy. They make more of everything than the American public can afford to buy. So the question would be, from me as a complete and total outsider, observer, whom apparently both of your leading presidential candidates don't want to do business with, who would be buying all of this stuff you make? Did you think it's a one-way street? We buy your stuff, but you don't buy our stuff? The only way we can make a deal is if America wins and we get the shaft. Well, that's just not the way the business world works today. Unless, of course, you're the only one who has everything that everyone else wants, which you don't have. Now, little old Canada isn't a huge consumer for the U.S., but much bigger than they think. And because we are probably one of the closest friends to the U.S., it may not hurt too much, but try turning off the cooperative taps around the world. Let's see who's all in then. We live in a global marketplace, folks. You can hop on a plane and 7 hours later be having a lunch in Paris. You can build a widget today in Canada and it can be used tomorrow in Australia. Trust me, if it can be made in Topeka, Kansas, it can be made anywhere in the world. Go ahead and build walls so people can't get in easily, but build trade barriers which seem less costly because there's no concrete involved. That will be the most costly wall of all for American workers. And the reality is that philosophy may just lead to a larger exodus of jobs. But for us Canadians, well, there's real opportunity here. We could have a field day with the outcome of the U.S. elections no matter who wins. We might just be in the driver's seat. Last week, the Prime Minister of Canada officially signed the documents to close the deal on the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, or CETA, with the European Union. Yep, you bet. We will soon, probably sometime in mid-2017, be starting to trade freely with the European Union member countries and the 500 million consumers in Europe, which is a much bigger market than the United States. I know for a fact that many American companies want to freely trade with the EU, but it appears now more than ever that that's unlikely for at least another decade. So maybe, just maybe, those wonderful companies in America would like a new home, a country that understands trade, a country that celebrates trade agreements, a country where we realize we're not alone in this world and that we all need to work together for our own individual prosperity. That breaking down barriers is the real key to economic success. Yes, the U.S. may collapse the TPP, that's fine, because then Canada can simply get out there and use the TPP framework to establish bilateral agreements with countries like Japan, Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand, Chile, and Peru, and offer a good home for those American companies who want to export freely to those markets. Hey, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that trade agreements haven't been a disruption in some economic sectors. Of course, they have. But they have also played a large contributing role in the economic enhancements as well. Far greater are the benefits from trade agreements than are the negatives. So to my friends south of the border, you will wake up Wednesday morning with a new president-elect. Nothing that any of you individually can do to change what that outcome ends up being. But what you can do is champion the cause, regardless of who wins, to ensure that the United States will continue to participate in the global economy, work with governments, and embrace the fact that you need us as much as we need you, and be an international player. All the best with your dilemma down there. I believe sanity always prevails, and I am positive all will be well within the State of the Union. I'm Greg DeRocher.